Okay, we're going to get started. I'd like to call this meeting to order. This is the Space Coast TPO, TAC, CAC monthly meeting for July 7th, 2021. If everyone could join me, say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you and welcome. It's been a long time since both groups have been together, the TAC and the CAC. And before we get started, I did want to say a couple of things. What a remarkable job that the TPO staff led by Georgiana has done over over this entire pandemic. Over more than a year. It's really incredible how they have been able to pivot and use technology in different venues, and this whole virtual world that we've been living in to thank you, to continue the great work that they do. It's so important. So I would like everyone here, if you could join me in saluting this great staff. Give them a round of applause for the great work that they've done. Thank you. Okay, first item on the agenda is the public comment, and these would be comments related to items that are not on the agenda. So we'll start here in the room. Is there any members of the public that would like to speak on items not on today's agenda? Okay, and not seeing any. Do we have any members online? Okay, thank you, Sarah. All right, well, we will move on to the consent agenda. Oh, sorry. Executive Director's report. Georgiana, you have it.
I think I'm going to step up here to the podium. Now? Testing. Okay. All right. It's a little bit of a delayed reaction. Well, I just want to say thank you. Thank you, Cliff, for those kind remarks. I think our amazing staff is really, they are to be applauded for pulling out, learning new technology, trying to figure out how we could all participate virtually. And so I really owe it to them. So thank you for recognizing that. We do appreciate it very much. And it's good to be together, one big happy family together. So I'm really excited about that. So I just wanted to point out a few things on page 2 of your agenda package is the Executive Director's report. I wanted to mention to you that the Central Florida MPO Alliance will be meeting this Friday at 10 a.m. and that is at the Metro Plan office in Orlando on 250 Orange Avenue. And of course, it'll be an in-person meeting, but for any of you that would like to participate virtually via Zoom or attend in person, there is a link here. And one of the things that we will be discussing is adopting the Central Florida MPO Alliance priorities, in which Ellis Road widening, Brevard County's, the TPO's #1 priority is at the top of that strategic intermodal system list. So these are regional priorities. And so that's very significant. It actually tops the I-4 projects. But of course, it does have some funding challenges because it is a county road and we can only use federal money on it. But the point is that it is getting a lot of attention and a lot of notice from the Central Florida region. So that's very important. Also, the Metropolitan Planning Organization Advisory Committee, what we call the MPOAC, it's the statewide MPOs. We're scheduled to meet July 29th. I did want to let you know that. It's at the Orlando Airport Marriott Lakeside. And so they will be discussing the new executive director position. Carl McKiska He has moved on to the Pasco County MPO director position. They're also going to be talking about the Highway Safety Improvement Program implementation plan and the Strategic Intermodal System Policy Plan. So this group talks about statewide policy. So it's really important that we're at the table along with FDOT and the Federal Highway Administration to have these conversations. The other thing I wanted to mention, the high visibility enforcement funding. FDOT offers local law enforcement agencies funding contracts for high visibility enforcement to improve bicycle and pedestrian safety. And so there is a link here with more information. We had a working group in the city of Palm Bay. They hosted that to kind of have a conversation about this. But the point is that we are leaving some money on the table for Brevard County. Each county that ranks in the top 15 for high pedestrian and bicycle fatalities can receive a certain amount of money for enforcement. And that's an important piece of the puzzle to try and bring down those numbers. And so we will be talking with our governing board about this on Thursday, tomorrow, but I did want to just mention that. One of the things that we're hearing is that there is a shortage of law enforcement officers from the Florida Highway Patrol to the local level. So that makes it difficult. You know, I think sometimes to go after funding when you don't have enough manpower to be able to do that enforcement for education. So it is a challenge, but I do want to mention that this money is out there and it can help us. It's just one piece of the puzzle. Also, I wanted to mention on that note, at your place, you have a Stop on Red pop-up event. And so Kim and Abby has been instrumental in putting this together. It will be August the 3rd at 9 a.m. and we will be at the O'Galley and Wickham intersection. We had a Stop on Red event last year, I think it was, and it was extremely successful. We're going to have the Melbourne Police Department out there and they will be pulling folks over that are not stopping on red, not to ticket them, but to educate them. And you know, red light running is a serious problem in Florida. And so this is important from an education standpoint, and this will really help us with our Vision Zero program. So we're looking for volunteers. It looks like we have quite a few already, but the more, the merrier, and the better. And I think we have, what, Kim, 7 people from DOT that is volunteered to 10 or 15 people. Yes, so thank you. Good question.
So we currently have set up the stage and you'll find the parking lot, but it looks like that's going to change. Anybody can find the come and let you know. Looks like we're going to move to Sable Elementary, which will be perfect. The teachers will be back. They won't be. There's a section of the car we can use. It's right there by the intersection, and we'll have plenty of parking.
Very good. Excellent. All right. And also, I did want to remind you, our next Transportation Thursday webinar is about intelligent transportation systems. And that is really what we're going to be talking about later today. As you can see, these amazing gadgets and technology over here, which is really our future. This is the 21st century infrastructure. It's not always about widening roads all the time. So really excited about that. But this webinar, Steve will be hosting that, and it'll be August the 26th from 10 to 11, and we're going to have some guest speakers as well. So I would encourage you to tune in to that. If you missed the FDOT partnership webinar, then there is a link here where you can watch it, and that was held on June the 3rd. And also, I just wanted to mention that you have the minutes from the draft governing board of May 13th, and the board did approve all of the action items that came before you at the May meeting. So that concludes my director's report.
Thank you, Georgiana. Good stuff. Next up is the consent agenda, and the goal of the consent agenda, there's 4 items, is to pass all those items with one motion from each governing committee here. Georgiana.
Sure. So I will read the consent agenda. 4A is the approval of the TAC-CAC meeting minutes of May 10th. 4B is the professional services agreement for traffic data collection program. And this, of course, is an important piece of our congestion management and performance monitoring process. 4C is a work order 2205T for a transit ridership survey scope of services to assist Space Coast Area Transit. And of course, this is very useful planning data, not only for the TPO, but for Space Coast Area Transit's development of all of their plans, including their transit development plan. And then finally, 4D is approval of resolution 2205, which is the Central Florida MPO Alliance fiscal year 22 regional list of priority projects that will be adopted by the Alliance on Friday. So that is the consent agenda for your consideration.
Thank you, Georgiana. Does anyone from either committee would like to pull any of these items for further discussion before we look for a motion? Seeing none, can I have a motion from the TAC? I have a motion from Devin. I have a second? Second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any nays? Item passes unanimously.
And from the CAC, can I get a motion, please? Motion from David. We have a second. Second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Okay, next we'll move on to our action items. We have 4 action items today. The first one is resolution 22-02, fiscal year 21 through 25. It's a transportation improvement program. It's the TIP amendment. Georgiana.
All right, so I'm going to stay up here for the next 2 items. So the 2 action items involve the transportation improvement program, and it can be a little confusing. So let's see, Sarah, if you could move to, there you go. Okay, perfect. So this is an amendment to our currently adopted transportation improvement program. We call it the TIP. And the TIP, this particular TIP will remain in effect until the end of the federal fiscal year, which is September the 30th. So there is that 3-month gap between July 1st, which is the beginning of the state fiscal year, and September 30th that we have to maintain not only our current TIP, but our brand new TIP that we will be adopting every single year. So this particular TIP amendment is for US 1 at Madrid Drive. That was the original limits of the project, and it is a drainage improvement. And the Florida DOT has asked that we change the limits of the project from US 1 from Miller Cove Road to the Pineda Causeway. And the design phase is funded for $143,000 in current year, and construction will be increased to $3.7 million in fiscal year 23. Another reason why they want to defer the construction phase 1 year is so that it can align with the resurfacing of US 1, which runs from Post Road to the Pineda Causeway. So both of these projects, the drainage project and the resurfacing, will be constructed in fiscal year 23. And so this would make more sense for both of these projects to go together, and the limits of the project has increased. So if you are in agreement with this, we do need a motion to approve the TIP amendment for fiscal year 21 through 25.
Thank you, Georgiana. Any discussion from the TAC on the item A? Yes.
I do not have a map. It is south of Pineda. So from Post Road, Correct, through the Palm Shores area, yes. Yep. There are separate improvements. So Christy has asked, and just want to remind everyone, you have got to speak into the microphone, or any of the folks. Okay, any of the folks online cannot hear, but what Christy has asked is, does it encompass the Pineda Causeway? There are separate improvements, I think, at the Pineda Causeway, like intersection or interchange improvements, and we can get some information on that. But this is the resurfacing and a drainage project. Okay. Yes, I apologize. Sorry about that.
Further discussion from the TAC?
Cliff, I wanted to add that there is a intersection signalization project going on at Pineda Causeway and US 1 on the south side, or the eastbound off-ramp.
Okay, thank you, Devin.
Thank you.
Any questions from the CAC? Seeing none.
Can I have a motion from the TAC? Motion from Frank, a second?
Second.
Second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any nays? Item passes unanimously.
And from the CAC, can I get a motion, please?
I move we approve resolution 2202.
Motion from David. Do we have a second? Second from Bill. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Okay, thank you. Item B, item B is adoption resolution 22-03 fiscal year 22 through 26 transportation improvement program, the TIP. Go ahead.
All right, one more for me. So every year, the tentative work program is submitted to the governor and the legislature, and is also provided to the MPO, the TPO, for development of our new TIP. And on July 1st, the legislature approves the budget, and at the same time, the tentative work program becomes the adopted work program, and the TPO's new TIP is adopted. So that's where we're at in the flow of adopting our new TIP. I do want to mention, just as an overview, how do projects get into the program for implementation? Sometimes that gets lost. You see all these projects in the TIP, but where do they come from? And I do want to mention, of course, there's lots of different types of projects, but especially for capacity projects or priority projects from the TPO, it begins with a long-range plan, which is our visionary document. It basically lays out what we want to be when we grow up, so to speak. And so it's a very important plan to be able to lay out who we are for the next 25 years, or the direction that we're going. And then, of course, it has to have a cost feasible component. A project cannot be deemed cost feasible unless there's reasonably expected revenue identified in that long range plan. Otherwise, it's just a dream. And so the cost feasible plan is very important. If a project's in the cost feasible plan, then those projects can get added to our priority list, our list of priority projects that we adopt once a year. And then finally, when we turn that list over to the DOT, they fund as many projects as they can with state and federal revenue. Then it gets put into the transportation improvement program. So that's how projects get into the program for implementation. Okay. So it is a very delayed reaction here. So I do want to mention here, just to mention a few projects in several categories. As you can see, we have highway and bridge capacity projects. And so that includes projects for 528 widening, Ellis Road widening, US 192 and Hollywood Boulevard, of course, our NASA Causeway Bridge replacements and the Space Commerce Way bridge replacements. Those are a few of the major projects in highway and bridge capacity. There are 19 resurfacing projects in the TIP. We also have significant space, seaport, and rail projects, which, as you can see in this chart, is a significant amount of strategic intermodal system funding coming into Brevard County. And also for space and seaports, there is private investment as well, at least for space, to try and increase the growing aerospace industry. So not only the state money also has private funding to have a 50% contribution. And then we also have a rail project for a double tracking on the Florida East Coast Railway from Frontenac to Cocoa. And that's a 50% local match as well. And I do not know, quite frankly, if that funding is coming from Brightline. Lots of times in the TIP, it will show local funding, but it also encompasses private funding as well. There's just no way of identifying the difference between local and private. So this is very significant amount of funding coming into Brevard County. And this graph just shows just the difference between federal, state, and local funding by year. And then I will just end on this last slide here, which is a summary of all of the projects. And that is 315 projects totaling $1 billion in funding over a 5-year period. And this is money coming into Brevard County. It's funding for maintenance, safety, operations. We have aviation, transit. It's very important projects for our economics. And so this TIP has been out for a 30-day public comment period. And we have received a few comments, and we hope that you've had an opportunity to look through it. But we are asking for your a motion for adoption of the fiscal year 22 through 26 Transportation Improvement Program.
Any discussion from the TAC?
Any questions from the CAC?
From the TAC, can I have a motion to adopt the TIP? Motion to approve from Frank. Do I have a second?
I'm sorry, I didn't catch it. Thank you.
We have a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any nays? Item passes.
And from the CAC, can I get a motion, please? Motion from Greg. We have second. Second from Arlen. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Great, thank you.
Okay, next item is C, fiscal year 22, list of project priorities. Sarah, good morning.
All right, good morning. I'm Sarah Crom. I'm the Senior Transportation Planner with the Space Coast TPO. I will be presenting our list of project priorities for adoption today. So if you recall at our May meeting, we did kind of give an overview of the process of the development of the list of project priorities. That was kind of in to queue us up for today. So I'm going to kind of just dive right into what the changes were to the list of project priorities. So we did have multiple fully funded projects. This is great news. This means that the projects were able to be completely moved off the list of project priorities onto our fully funded list. And that means that they are now within the TIP that Georgiana just presented. Some of the highlights that were funded over the last couple of years, the US 1 Phase 1 project in Melbourne, which will include multimodal improvements, a trail system in Melbourne, the Parish Park Trailhead that we had to do a list of project priorities amendment to get back on. We have several sidewalk projects. The Hollywood 192 intersection is going to be a great project. And of course, the Space Commerce Way and other projects along the NASA Causeway. So some of the changes that happened to the list of project priorities were obviously those fully funded projects were pulled off. But we added 6 new projects, which I'll review here in a second. We had 1 project added to the candidate list. And we also, if you recall from last year, we had to kind of take all of our project priority lists and merge them into one singular list, as we used to have them all broken out as sidewalk projects, intersection projects, etc. And per request of FDOT, we combined them all into one list. Well, this year we decided to pull the planning projects off back into their own separated list. We did discuss this with FDOT, made sense to both parties. This is because the planning projects are a little bit unique, as some of those projects are eventually going to go into our unified planning work program for TPO staff to manage. Some of them are going to be managed by FDOT. It's just they're kind of a mixed bag that really made sense to get a picture at those planning projects as a separate kind of snapshot. So within your agenda package, there is a separate planning projects list. There's also, I should have mentioned this before, for the first time ever, we have 3 maps in your agenda package. And so we have the project priorities, that the planning studies, as I just mentioned, and then also the fully funded list, all mapped out thanks to Chelsea. So to review, just kind of a brief, really quick snapshot back to last meeting. The way that these projects are ranked into the list of project priorities is through a quantitative score of 0 to 100, a qualitative score based on a consensus recommendation of the Transportation Subcommittee. This past cycle, the Transportation Subcommittee did make some qualitative score recommendations, and then discretionary ranking, which is essentially the committees and board could opt to move a project based on our governing board having consensus on that. Where basically you could say we want to move this, we want to make the recommendation that the governing board chooses to move this project X, Y, and Z to number 3 because of such and such reasons. So moving into that, these are moving from that. These are the new projects. And this one's not really a new one. It's one that was on our project priority list. It had been pulled off previously, and now it's back. It's the Traffic Management Center. I am not going to speak any more about that because I'm going to leave all the glory to Steve in the next agenda item to talk more about the Traffic Management Center. The Space Coast Trail, which also, once again, is not really a new project. It had been previously funded. In this last work program cycle, the funding was deleted, and so we've now needed to put it back on the priority list. It is for construction only, and we are actually making the recommendation, staff, to have it discretionary ranked as number 4 and 5. It's been broken down into 2 segments. The reason we're requesting discretionary ranking is because this is a vital part of our regional trail system. It's the eastern terminus of the Coast to Coast Trail, which runs from St. Pete all the way to Titusville. It's a fairly decent chunk of the Brevard section of the St. Johns River to Sea Loop, which runs through 5 counties in this northeastern central part of Florida, as well as also it's the number 1 on the Central Florida MPO Alliance priority list and so trail priority list. So we really want to reflect if it's seen as regionally the number 1, we need to have it as our number 1 trail project as well. So moving forward, another project that we received was a A1A sidewalk project and satellite from Volunteer Way to Roosevelt Ave. And so it'd be filling in sidewalk gaps, much needed sidewalk gaps around A1A. Another sidewalk not a sidewalk project. This is a planning study in Cape Canaveral and Cocoa Beach from State Road 520 to International Drive on A1A. Basically, it would continue the curb and gutter concept that's currently being developed up in Cape Canaveral along A1A and complete a complete street segment. State Road 520, Cocoa Beach Causeway. This has definitely been a discussion for many years now. And so it was identified in the Space Coast TPO Sea Rise Vulnerability Assessment. The city of Cocoa Beach has made several resolutions really pushing that this causeway needs to be studied for some sort of mitigation to be done in order to keep this causeway functioning through. I mean, we're in a tropical storm today, so obviously, that if it had come in another way, this causeway could really be affected. Mitten Road, from Jupiter Boulevard to Malabar Road. This was submitted by Palm Bay for a planning study of the feasibility to widen the road. And then finally, this is the project that was added to our candidate list. Melbourne submitted for Norfolk Parkway to be extended to from St. John's Heritage Parkway to the Melbourne city limits. And it's a great project, but it's not quite ready to be put on the priority list. And so it's on the candidate list, and we want to spend this next year working with Melbourne to develop a path forward for the project so we can hopefully next year move it to the priority list. So with that, those are kind of the major changes, or those are the major changes to the list of project priorities this year. If there are any questions regarding the list, be happy to take them now. Otherwise, we're looking for a motion.
Questions, comments from the TAC to Sarah?
Got one item.
Yes.
For the schematic here, it looks like it doesn't quite match the actual project priority list. I think the priority list was updated afterwards. I just want to point that out.
Oh, as far as the numbering?
The rankings.
Yeah, you are correct. Is it? Yep. Thank you for catching. Okay, I'm sorry. Mr. Smith from the city of Cocoa wanted to comment that on the project priorities map, it does not reflect the current list, and that is accurate. There was some changes in the ranking, such as Hollywood should be higher up. So ignore the numbers on the map. Go with the numbers within the list within your agenda package. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. Pete, you had something?
Can somebody give Pete a microphone? Thank you.
Thank you.
The trail construction from the Merritt Island National Wildlife Refuge to the beach, and then from the beach back to Courtney, and then to Edgewater. It shows construction for 2022. And then you said there's no money for it yet.
Yes, so that is the year that we were obviously requesting the funding, but there's no money. So, we want to keep it right at the forefront of, we want that money as soon as possible.
And then my second question, this is a list for 2023 through 2027. And I see some items on there for 2031. So are they on the wrong list?
So we've had a discussion about this internally over the course of several years. Is some of the projects that are on the current priority list are within the LRTP. Those are what those dates are listed as. Those are the dates that they're listed within the LRTP. So that's how they kind of flushed out with cost feasible. However, locals have requested the funding now, and so we felt add them to the priority list with the understanding of potentially we might have to do an LRTP amendment, correct? If some of those projects were funded out of year, right?
It's possible. But with the strategic and with 528, which is the one that you have pointed out, with strategic intermodal system funding, if there was a time when SIS funding was much more bountiful and we could get things moved up as opposed to deferred. So it would probably trigger a long-range plan amendment. Not quite sure if the department would make us do that, but we would certainly do it if they come up with the money. So that's yeah.
Well, if I get the drift of it, hey, we can't promise you anything, but see, you're on the list. That's about right.
Well, I mean, that's kind of the way it is at all times.
Yeah, okay, you answered my question, thanks.
Okay. Yes, Christine?
Yeah, the question I have with the Norfolk Parkway extension is you mentioned that it's not ready, but it's to be worked on next year. What does that mean? Going through the TAs, the technical committees, the subcommittee, and
it is currently not cost feasible with the LRTP. So it is not eligible to be put on the list of project priorities.
Mm-hmm.
However, we feel like it's a valuable project. And so we want to work forward with trying to find a plan on what is the best way to move it from not being cost feasible into being cost feasible.
Okay, and the only other comment about additional information is it's a multi-jurisdictional impact. So I certainly would hope besides the city of Melbourne, you'd be working with the city of West Melbourne too.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from either committee?
I have one quick question. Oh, sorry about that. New guy here. Scott Brown, City of Rockledge, project priorities, 519 Fisk Boulevard. That's Martin Road
Martin Roy Wall.
intersection. Okay. And the planning studies. So the difference between project priorities at number 14 and planning studies is the same number 6, 519. That's,
I believe that's.
I mean, we're in two different phases, or is that another project?
Yes. Yeah, Brian.
Okay.
Yeah. Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, it's
to
two separate
okay.
projects.
Gotcha.
Mhm.
Just verifying. Thank you.
Yeah. Mhm.
Okay, I did have something that, at the risk of sounding parochial, the widening of Malabar Road from St. John's Heritage Parkway to Minton is currently number 14 on the project priority list. I've said this before. I think that I'd like to see it move considerably higher on the project priority list. If you're not familiar with that road, there's a tremendous amount of new construction going on in that area, as well as you have Heritage High School, you have Fred Poppy Park, which is the largest and most diverse park in Palm Bay. Traffic on that road is already, it's a 2-lane road, is already horrendous. The PD&E was completed a year ago. We need to get that road widened as quickly as possible.
So I completely agree with you. And if we did want to, you guys could make the move to move it higher up in the list per board approval. However, something to remember about the way that our list of project priorities is set up is technically it's number 2. And because in design, as far as being queued up for anything that's not construction. So we put all of our construction ready projects up at the top, and then it kind of restarts. It was one of our ways of getting around the having to make it as a list. And so even though it looks like it's 14, it's technically number 2. And when you go outside of construction ready projects.
I appreciate that, but also too, for like I said, the PD&E was completed last year. The planning isn't scheduled until 2026, and so construction would be at some time after that. So again, that's why I'm kind of emphasizing it. I'd like to see design moved up sooner so that we can get it to construction sooner, because it is a really critical road.
Absolutely, I agree. Thank
So,
you.
Sarah, if I may, because I do want to make sure the members do understand that when you're looking at the priority list, we have a column that says funding phase, and then there's a column that says proposed phase. And that column means, this is what is either in our long range plan as a future proposed year, or this is what we're asking the department. Okay, this is when we need the project funded. It doesn't mean that it's funded. And so, what Phil said about Malabar Road is definitely, it is an important project. And we're proposing that it be funded in 2026 because that's the year that we have it identified in our long range plan for design. But the challenge is it's a road off the state highway system, and we can't use state funding off the state highway system. So the challenge is that we're going to have to use federal and or local match. And we have got to start thinking more strategic to move these important off-system projects forward. Otherwise, they're just going to sit here year after year after year. So it's something to think about. We had a big conversation about funding at the last meeting, and it's a challenge. And we need to think of all funding options, and the more money from a local perspective that could come to the table along with the TPO's money. And then we can start really having a conversation with DOT and start leveraging their federal money. The TPO has federal money, but the DOT has federal money. They just can't use state money on projects like this. So I did want to point that out.
Thank you. Any further questions?
Yes, Sarah, can I just respond on this? I'm Frank Watanabe from the city of Palm Bay. On that PD&E study, it has not been completed yet. Actually, we're only midway through. The challenge is, as you've done PD&E studies and we're the prime managing the contract, you have to have the full design fully funded, and we do not have that. And since we do not have that, we do not have planning consistency. So what's going to happen is we're midway through. We should be going into the public process. We're going to be held because of those documents will stop being reviewed by FDOT and the OEM, and that's where we're at right now. So the challenge right now is getting the design funded, more so than than completing the PD&E study. So that's where we're at right now. It's a big challenge, and the challenge is that price went up. Originally, we had design costs about $3 to $4 million. Our current study we have right now with the alternative shown is $10 million. So, and that's a number that we're having a hard time locally. If we have to provide local match or local funds, we're considering it, but we don't have the full 10 million to cover the full cost. So that's what we're right now challenged with. And again, just to clarify, the PD&E study has not been completed.
Yes.
Thank you
And it's
for-
very similar. I just want to point it out, South Babcock. We were in the exact same situation with Brevard County and the city of Palm Bay, and that the design, or excuse me, the PD&E is now on the shelf. It's not been signed off on because we don't have the 16 or is it $18 million for the design phase to widen South Babcock. So it's a challenge with these projects off the state highway system. And so, yes, they're priorities on our priority list, but if we don't start thinking a little bit more strategically, they're just going to be sitting there and not moving forward as quickly as we need them to.
Yep. We also have the eastern portion of Malabar. That's also another one of those kind of stuck in limbo because of it. That's, I believe, 50 million in right of way. So, so.
Further comments or questions? Okay, I'll be looking for a motion from the TAC to approve the project priorities.
Make a motion to approve the fiscal year 2022 list of project priorities.
Motion by Scott. Second by Liz. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any nays? Item passes unanimously.
And from the CAC, can I get a motion, please? Motion from David, a second from Arlen. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Okay, our next action item is the Intelligent Transportation System Master Plan. Stephen is going to present that. Good morning, Stephen.
Good morning, everyone. It's good to have everybody back together as one group. And I'm not just saying that because that's one less time I have to give this presentation. Absolutely. So we've got a lot of great things to talk about today in my presentation. But before I get started, I want to highlight, in case you haven't noticed, all the cool equipment over there today. Rich and John from Brevard County Traffic Operations have been nice enough to come and set up this display for us to really show everybody, what all goes into the day-to-day of our intelligent transportation systems, because our technology is only as good as its weakest link, and we have to keep it working, and our lives depend on guys like Rich and John over there in the corner. So with that, I'll get on to, we did our first ITS master plan in 2015, and it kind of laid out the roadmap for our future of transportation technology deployments. And I had the privilege of working with all of our local maintaining agencies, our consultant, Atkins, we've got Nathan, and I worked with Space Coast Area Transit as well. Izzy's here representing them today. And so I'll put together our plan update. And I'm going to go over an overview, general highlight of what ITS is, just to get everybody on the same page. What the goals of our new plan update were, some of the projects that came out of it, the benefits of ITS, and the implementation success factors. But before I go on, can I get a quick show of hands of who all in the room is familiar with intelligent transportation systems? So a good amount. All right, so just to get everyone on the same page, you do have a quick introductory video to let everybody know. And we do have this video on our YouTube channel. I encourage you all to share it with your constituents, just so we can educate everyone on everything that goes into these systems. Because they, as Georgiana mentioned, they are our 21st century transportation technology.
Space Coast Transportation Planning Organization here with some technorific news about the current state of our area's growing intelligent transportation system and how our tax dollars can transport us into a safer and even more money-saving, tax-saving, and connected future. All of the intelligent transportation technologies we'll see, current, coming, and future, enable our local travelers to be better informed and make safer, more coordinated, and smarter use of transportation networks while saving money, fuel, and time. Most importantly, our intelligent transportation system will save our local tax dollars in the long run. We'll look at the technologies that are currently deployed, the new tech that's already on the way, and some future tech that's truly game-changing if we choose to adopt it. Let's take a little trip to a local intersection and look at the technologies currently deployed there. Here, we see the intersection of Pineda Causeway and Wickham Road. Let's look at our already deployed closed-circuit television, known as CCTV, and vehicle detection sensors working alongside the high-speed network beneath our feet, and then add in the future possibilities. There's more to our intelligent transportation system than meets the eye, as CCTV allows traffic management staff to get a real-time look at traffic flow and watch for accidents. Vehicle detection with its special sensors automatically detects the presence of vehicles and obstructions on the roadway and instantly warns the management center. Meanwhile, our already on the way crosswalk detection software will use similar vehicle detection sensors to check for people in the crosswalk and warn oncoming traffic day or night and in all weather conditions. Now, let's add in some other existing possibilities like Bluetooth technology, which can detect the speed of vehicles entering and exiting the roadway. The Traffic Management Center now not only sees the intersection, but has much deeper traffic flow data to use for safety and roadway improvements. Speaking of traffic management centers, our new traffic management center is being envisioned as we speak. We're really excited about it. It's the brains of this entire operation, after all. Let's travel to another location and look at some more future possibilities. This is the intersection of US 192 and Hollywood Boulevard. In addition to the technologies we've already seen, this intersection employs another modern technology called signal coordination. Signal coordination uses the vehicle detection sensors to allow other intersections upstream and downstream to communicate with each other and work together to predict traffic flow and adjust the signals, improving traffic flow and saving travelers even more time and money. With the addition of roadside units, direct communication with vehicles becomes possible, providing instant traffic notifications like red light wait times. And with onboard units installed in vehicles, the possibilities are even greater, as vehicles could then communicate directly with each other and the surrounding infrastructure, increasing travel efficiency, safety, and hopefully less road rage. And of course, high above the hustle and bustle, next-generation drones could not only ferry our online purchases, but provide first responders a bird's-eye view of accidents, or even provide updates to your smartphone about foot traffic at a concert, festival, or rocket launch. Of course, new technology is an investment. Our hardware must be updated, maintained, and secured in order for future components to integrate seamlessly, in the same way that we wouldn't hook up a supercomputer to a dial-up internet connection. In the present and in the future, all of these technologies acting together increase safety, optimize our existing infrastructure, and save taxpayers time and money. Well, what are you waiting for? Get involved and support the future of our intelligent transportation system. Let your local elected officials know that you support enhanced traffic operations. Learn more at spacecoasttpo.com. Thanks for watching.
All right, so even if you're familiar with intelligent transportation systems, so if you learned a little bit of something from that video, and again, I encourage you to share that with your constituents. so that we can get, the word out to the public that, traffic operations is very important, and it's important that we support our investments, not only with new stuff, but with people and staffing, and to keep everything running and secure. And so we've done a lot since 2015. There's been extensive system upgrades, a lot, like over, I think, 500 or more detection upgrades throughout that time period since 2015. We've done a few expansion projects in Melbourne. We did a big upgrade project on Courtney Parkway. The Florida Department of Transportation is a huge partner with us in all of this, and they've got several programs that have expanded out of a grant in the Orlando area. Greenway and PedSafe are a couple of them. Greenway is, trying to get all of our traffic moving safer, more efficiently, and PedSafe is trying to figure out how we can make our intersections safer for pedestrians and cyclists using technology. But one thing we've made marginal progress on is our staffing levels. It's a challenge right now in the industry. These skill sets are in high demand, and frankly, they pay more in the private sector most of the time. And so we've had a hard time attracting people that we need to the area. And so with that, we've gotten a pretty large network. We've got over 180 miles of fiber optic cable, a lot of dynamic meshing signs, closed circuit cameras. Rich has got some up on the screen. Microwave vehicle detectors, and over 480 connected signals, which allows us to monitor them in real time and make adjustments if necessary. And also to see if there's something wrong out there. And so since 2015, if you just think of what's in your pocket right now, a lot has changed in technology. So in 2015, when we did our first plan, the iPhone 6S came out. And I joke that we're on the iPhone 19 now, but it's the iPhone 12. And there's been significant improvements in just the technology, just in our pockets. And so the technology in our vehicles has changed just as much, if not more, in some of the newer vehicles. Automatic braking's becoming standard. Lane assist is helping make sure we stay in the lines and distancing safer with automatic cruise control. Heads-up displays are coming up more and more in newer vehicles, which displays all the information right on the windshield, so you don't even have to look down to see how fast you're going. And then backup and rear cameras are pretty much standard on all vehicles now, along with many, many other things. And so with all of those updates in technology, that's really what led us to update our original ITS master plan, is to account for some of these changes and try to see what we might be able to do differently, utilizing new technology and even utilizing some existing technology in different ways. And so we started out with updating our goals, and we made sure all of our goals were in alignment with our long-range transportation plan. You heard Georgiana mention it earlier. It's our guiding document, and so we like to make sure all of our plans are consistent with that document. And so by putting all those goals in place, we went through and worked with all of our local maintaining agencies. We came up with a great process that everybody agreed to, and FDOT, and we came up with a big list of new projects. And the foundation of them is some of the stuff Rich has displayed. But this time, something that was a bit different was we looked a lot more at safety projects. So we've got our Vision Zero action plan that Kim's worked on, and safety is our #1 priority, and I'm pretty sure everyone's #1 priority across the board. So we really took a deeper dive into what we could do safety-wise. And so we ended up with over 126 projects. We had interstate projects, advanced traffic management system projects, which are the expansion fiber optic cable projects that Rich has displayed. And then we've got our intersection safety projects, some specialized evacuation projects, some that looked at event management, and parking management is a new one. I'll talk a bit more about that later, and bicycle and pedestrian safety projects. And so our interstate projects are really more centered around our ramps, on ramps, off ramps. And one of them is a wrong way driving notification. This is already in use on the Expressway Authority. and is a very good thing to have for safety wise. There's a whole series of events that occurs if someone goes the wrong way. One of them in that picture, you can see the lights flash to let the person know that they're going the wrong way. Another one is queue warning systems. You kind of see that in place today some. If you're on 95 and there's traffic backed up, they try to put that on the message signs to let you know you need to slow down in the future. Part of the expansion of that could be hopefully you'll get notifications in your car as our cars get more tech in them to give you a further heads up, but also trying to see what we can do at our on and off ramps as they get more congested, whether it be ramp metering, which regulates the flow getting onto 95, but which we're a ways off from, or trying to make the signals work better at our off ramps to get traffic moving better. And then moving on to our arterial roadways is where we get into our advanced traffic management systems, which is what we have on display here. It's really the foundation of our ITS projects. And so once you have the smart signal controller in there that we can connect to and the cameras that we can see the intersections at, we can try to start adding future things like roadside units that connected vehicles can communicate with and whatever new technologies come our way. But we have to have that basic foundation before we can add new stuff to it. And then so getting onto some safety improvements in the signalized intersections, there's some basic things we can do like signal retiming, deploying more cameras. One thing I'm excited about is some of the research on advanced dilemma zone detection. We've all been in the situation where the light turns yellow and do you speed up, do you slow down? It'd be nice if the signal controller was on the same page with you. So there's some new technologies that are working on trying to account for that. And then connected vehicle technology is getting those roadside units deployed once there's a good standard decided. We're getting really close to that. That will allow those controller cabinets to communicate with vehicles to let you know how long the light's going to be red for, or that if you go 5 miles under the speed limit, you might get every green light, which is kind of counterintuitive to how everyone drives now, or most people, sorry. And then also a flashing beacon located upstream to notify around blind corners or big traffic backups. And then something else new that we took a look at was some unsignalized intersections and how we could utilize some existing technologies in these areas. And we've got a few example locations that we looked at: Rower Road at Turtle Mound, Pinehurst at Spyglass. And this is really, some of those side streets, especially if the main street has a curve, it's difficult to see a vehicle on the side street. And so once a vehicle pulls up on the side street, it could activate, a beacon on the main line to at least alert drivers that someone's on one of those side streets. And again, this is all about giving drivers more information so they can make better decisions. And then we got into bicycle safety. Again, Vision Zero is a main priority of where we're focusing our improvements. And so we took a lot of took a look at that high injury network developed in the Vision Zero plan development process, and took a look at some of the cyclist locations and identified some of these as possible improvements, everything from blank out signs to bicycle specific detection, and letting the motorists know that there's cyclists in the area. It's all about that information to the drivers. And adaptive lighting systems. It could be street lights, just to light up some dimly lit areas at night to let drivers see those cyclists better. And then pedestrian safety, some similar improvements as the bicyclist ones, but some of the more interesting ones are the passive pedestrian detection. That's kind of like that bell-shaped camera on the top of the cabinet there could potentially identify pedestrians where they're at in the crosswalk, and if the pedestrian countdown needs to go a little bit longer because they're not going fast enough, it could extend that and make sure they cross safely. And then the adaptive lighting, lighted crosswalks, and that connected vehicle technologies to notify drivers that pedestrians have been detected in the area. Some of you might drive cars that already do that sometimes too. And then we looked at some areas where we can blend two of those together. A lot of them were on A1A. We've got a site-specific example here on A1A. It's a pedestrian crossing, and that's using overlapping video coverage and analytics, again, to get that information back to motorists so they know that cyclists and pedestrians are in the area. And then transit. So Izzy and his team at Space Coast Area Transit have made great progress on getting their connected bus technology deployed. You can see back in the back there that they can see where every single one of their buses are. I believe Terry gave us a quick overview in the past at that, but Izzy's here if you want to talk to him afterwards and get some more information on that. And that's connected to their app where transit riders can also pay their fare and everything, but that's been a huge win for all of our transit riders, that they don't have to wait in the sun or in a tropical storm as long. They can see exactly where the bus is and time getting to the stop appropriately. But there's some other things we looked at in our plan and what we can do in the future with them. We can install things in the cabinets again. Like once we have the foundation, we can add to it. Transit signal priority that could give the bus green light priority if it's running late. Which would allow it to get back on time. And so that's something we're looking into in the future. And then I mentioned event management and evacuation. Thankfully, we were all able to be here today and we didn't have to test any of this stuff out. But event management has been a big deal around here lately with our space program getting back up and going. And FDOT has done a great job at helping manage some of that launch traffic better and working with our local partners like the port and local agencies and coming up with better plans to get people in and out of our area safer. And so these event management and evacuation projects that were identified help all of the operators do that better, give them more resources to do so more efficiently, more cameras, better signal coordination, etc. And then something new is parking management. So I'm an avid beach goer and there's nothing more frustrating. You get really excited to go to the beach and you get to where you think you want to go and all the spots are full. And so this is something where we might be able to work with some of our beachside communities and come up with ways where we can get parking space availability information to the traveling public, whether it be through an existing app like Waze or something like that. I think there's opportunities there, especially with those that already have existing parking payment kiosks. But a system like that, we could potentially put signs up on notifications on our DMS signs and have some signs, maybe like if you guys have seen in Disney Springs in their parking garages that let you know some of the space availability information. And so with all of that, the good stuff, the benefit to cost ratio, 10-year opportunity cost for our 10-year plan, which is really just the ATMS expansion projects and our evacuation projects, because things like the safety projects and everything are much more difficult to quantify, comes out to a 7-to-1 benefit cost ratio, which is really, really good in the transportation world. I'm pretty sure if when we look at widening projects and things like that, the minimum is 2-to-1. So in order for it to move forward. So really, really good, especially when we look at all the safety benefits, and then the time and fuel savings are part of that. But these are some of the few projects that actually pay for themselves over time in time and fuel savings to the traveling public. And we talked earlier during Georgiana's presentation about some of these projects that have been taking a really long time. But these projects can be done pretty quick in transportation years. Sometimes upgrades between 1 year and some expansion projects in 5 years. So that's kind of warp speed in our world. And it all really gears us up to prepare for the future of transportation. As it gets increasingly hard to widen roadways and more expensive to do so, we have to start using what we have better and making it more efficient. And that's really the way we do it. And so, and all of that has to get us back to our implementation success factor. So we can make nice plans and everything and show off cool stuff, but we need people like you to go back to your respective agencies and make any needed changes to policies to really make sure traffic operations is at the top. Comp plan amendments, maybe, things like that to make sure that when developers go in, they're putting in the type of signals that are needed, the right equipment, and then staffing. So the TPO has helped with operational funding for Brevard County ITS that funds a couple staff positions, but we need to start doing that for all of our maintaining agencies as well and kind of open that up. And then project funding. Projects can come through the TPO or they can come through any one of your respective agencies. Just because you don't maintain the signals necessarily for your agency, Brevard County is always happy to expand on the system and help everybody make everything more efficiently, as well as the other maintaining agencies as well. And in that as well is FDOT. Like I said, they're great partners and there's a lot of resources that they already have that we can pull from and help get projects done. And then operations and maintenance funding. Again, I'm wearing the vest not to look cool, but it is cool because again, it comes down to our maintaining people. You know, I can come up here and tell you guys all about this stuff, but we really need more people to take care of our systems more efficiently, especially as we get more. The more stuff that goes in there, the more problems you can have. Lightning strikes, a car hits one of those things. We need people to take care of them. And updating our signal maintenance agreements. Could do some things in there, as well as Brevard County maintains most of the signals for the agencies in our area. If new maintenance agreements come up and it costs a little bit more, it's because of all of the things I've been talking about today. And so part of the follow-up from all of this is I'll be working on forming a local operations committee with our maintaining agencies and then pulling other people that are interested in it as well, and how we can do better in some of our event management, not just launches, and try to utilize our systems that we have more efficiently. And then all of that has to talk back to our transportation management center. That's hard for me to say because I've been calling it a traffic management center forever, but we are really looking at all modes of transportation. And so trying to get in the habit of saying transportation management center more. And so Brevard County has started design on the transportation management center. We do have to find funding for construction. Sarah mentioned it is number 3 on our priority list, but this really, it will be the future of our transportation facility. It will be a collaborative facility, so any and every local agency that wants to coordinate on traffic operations or a big event can come and share space here as needed. And we're also looking at having our TPO office in this building as well, so we can help not only with planning for the future, but also taking a look at the massive amounts of data that this system is generating on a daily basis and analyze it to help us identify where we need to make improvements in the future. And so all of that, again, it's the groundwork for our future transportation. We're the Space Coast. We're all here for space in one way, shape, or form. And so all of this ground transportation work that we do really gets us to some cool places. And there's only more and more of this happening, and which will attract more and more people here. So we really need to make sure that we keep this as a top priority. I know we have a lot of them, but this stuff's keeping us going day to day. And so with that, I would ask for adoption of our ITS master plan and be happy to answer any questions.
Can you use your mic?
Go ahead.
Yeah, just in the future design, you know, we're looking at a tip that goes out to 2026, 2027. How plugged in are you with these projects as far as implementing the ITS?
I'm very plugged in. And so I mentioned some of the quick time frame things. There's a lot of times where we find ourselves in situations where we get small amounts of funding available in current year that can't fund these giant projects right away. And so our close partnership with FDOT allows us sometimes to use some of those funds for upgrades to stuff in those cabinets. And then as soon as a local agency applies for one of these ITS projects or any ITS improvement, we do our very best to help it work its way through our planning process in the tip. And I believe we do have a couple in there right now. There's one in Melbourne on NASA Boulevard. I believe design is underway and we have some construction funding identified. And then also as part of the NASA Causeway bridge improvements and Space Commerce Way widening, they have some ITS improvements out there as well. So, and then another layer to that is the Florida Department of Transportation looks at this, and anytime they do a resurfacing project, if we don't already have something there, they do their very best to include everything that we've planned for on that roadway in that resurfacing project. Loops are good. So we still use loops on many occasions. But as long as they're maintained and monitored and we can see that they're working, and when they're not working, we're in good shape.
David.
So, oh, hi. Wow. Let's try it from back here.
Mike's on.
The high-speed rail is going to cause some new safety problems at those intersections, at those highway intersections. Are you looking forward to handling the problems that come with the increased train traffic and the high-speed rail?
Absolutely. I know Brightline has been coordinating closely with the local agencies on all of those signal crossing upgrades that are being made. I know there's signal upgrades that are happening as part of that. I'm not privy to exactly the details of all of them. But I do know that their goal is to try to time the signals and be able to detect the train so that as they go through, you shouldn't be waiting for more than a time you would for a red light. That's the goal. Sir.
Go ahead.
I noted several different places where this has touch points on the public internet, and this is all really exciting and very interesting. If I were a hacker, I would also find it very interesting and very exciting as a good way to make a whole lot of money off of the public very simply.
Yep.
How do you deal with the levels of security here? I mean, I can see some of it is potentially air gapped, but obviously it's not. So can you speak to that?
I will a little bit. If you'd like to know detail, you can talk to Rich maybe afterwards, but good cybersecurity practices does not talk too much about your cybersecurity practices. The Department of Transportation has numerous layers and protocols that they go through, and I mean a lot, like, and so those are used really as the guidance to the local agencies as well to follow what they're doing, because frankly they have a much larger system and even bigger exposure with the expanse of their system. So there's lots of practices in place, not to say that something couldn't happen, but they have procedures in place too, as well as if something does happen.
It seems that many of these vulnerabilities come from places that you don't suspect. A good example popped up this week. Any Windows operating system that prints, which they all do, has a vulnerability in it that could allow for an entire network takeover. So, you know, those cybersecurity things are very difficult to deal with. Do you deal with that just as staff, or do you have people specifically targeted at taking care of cybersecurity?
So there's different layers to all of that. There are some dedicated people to it for the region, but there's probably opportunity to maybe have some more, as the more things and the bigger our network gets, probably you get some more localized experts on some of that. As great as the job that Rich does, he can't do everything. So again, we get back to needing more people and things like that.
Yes, Pete, go ahead. Get the microphone.
I just want to make sure I understood a couple of things correctly. The first is in that management center with the bars on the windows to protect your guys, is that you can sit there and you can look at a TV screen, and if the intersection is boogered up, you can see it. And from the traffic management center, you can retime the signals to get that intersection back into the flow of things.
Yes,
is that correct?
Yes, sir. And those bars might not be there. That's just the
Hey, you know, I saw
I think
bars.
it's flying debris from hurricanes, because it will be a hurricane hardened building. So.
Well, if you fixed intersection too good, you might need the bars. And the second thing I picked up when you were talking about traffic backing up on the ramps on I-95, that in rush hour, the system breaks down and you get on total recall. So the whole ITS system is set up for non-rush hour Did I get that correct?
No, on those ramps that they're.
Well, not just the ramps, but you go on total recall on the main lines.
No, that shouldn't happen. They should be optimized for rush hour, but things happen. Wasps build nests in front of the cameras and mess up the detection zones. Loops break, things like that. And some ramps might not be connected yet. A lot's happened over a short period of time, and more have gotten connected, and things have gotten a little better. But even if in some instances, we're seeing volumes that even if you give an entire 2 minutes to a left turn, you still have a volume of cars that are still going to stack up onto 95.
Yeah, it breaks down during rush hour, no matter what we do. More population and we get traffic jams. And then the third is just a comment. You mentioned Disney. And if anybody wants to see good traffic management, go to Disney. They've got it down to a T. They manage traffic better than anybody in the state. They deal with how many guests, 50,000 a day, and they can get them in and out without any traffic jams. We can't do that.
Absolutely. Thanks, Pete.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
With this ITS master plan map and all the numbers that are on here, are those segments or what do those numbers mean?
Those are project numbers. And so on our website, we have a detailed description of every single project that was identified. And again, this is a guiding document, so it's not an end all be all. So if we missed an intersection safety improvement or there's a piece of roadway that you feel needs to be added at some point, we can definitely do that. But yeah, those are numbers that reference each project.
Okay, and then my comments are to piggyback on what Pete was saying is that, we all are aware of, with storms and whatnot, how much interrupted, website and digital connection there can be. So if you're, getting to these intersections and relying more on, the internet and those types of communications, I hope that there's a backup system with the fiber optics and others in case we can't communicate because of whatever bad weather is happening.
Yeah, another focus in this plan too was looking at redundancy as well for things like that, and fiber breaks also. So if someone digs a hole somewhere and breaks one of the fiber lines, there's other routes that the information can travel on.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just gonna make some comments, but as far as most of the connectivity to the actual individual devices, we're basically talking about individual LANs. So basically microcosm networks on hardline fiber. So not taking data to the internet and to the individual locations, but all the individual locations, the signals, the devices in an isolated network to itself. And so these do have outputs like APIs to public facing entities like Waze or what have you, but they're all pretty, they're all through firewalls and they have a very high level of security protection. That's actually dictated by DOT's guidelines. One of the other things is we're talking about basically intertwining kind of like a World Wide Web of the Space Coast region, including a number of networks. Brevard County has a network. City of Melbourne has a network. So we're not talking about one local network like SkyNet. It's a bunch of networks that are actually working together. And that actually, by the actual virtue of it, provides kind of additional levels of security because there's multiple networks. So we're not talking about putting everything into one box and letting it be free reign. Agencies kind of maintain their own network, and it's all kind of individual LANs that work together to create kind of that, like an internet. And then that is air gap, like you said, from the actual public-facing internet through IP schemas, through firewalls, through various port lockdowns, and a number of different parameters. And DOT has a very good guideline on it. They also have a very strong networking professional team that Steve alluded to that actually helps the local agencies in some of their security practices for them. So a number of things that kind of work together to make this a feasible reality. But the biggest one is we're talking about hardline connections to each individual location. And so if the storm happens, we'll have redundancy. And so the ATMS project that Stephen talked about, we're really focused on resiliency, robustness, and redundancy of the network. Making sure that we have the technology foundation to do all of these really cool things while still being able to perform in, severe weather scenarios.
Thanks, Nate.
Yeah.
Just to add to that, by us maintaining our own networks, they're actually private networks. I mean, they're owned by us. They're not utilized by other agencies. They're not utilized for internet services. Keeping them private.
Thank you. So as I was saying, we maintain private networks. They are our networks, our fiber. They're not interconnected to the internet. They're also manned and monitored by professional staff to FDOT guidelines. So the video feeds you're watching right now, which is Pineda and Wickham Road, that's actually all running on a private network. Through a VPN, I'm accessing our private network to provide this video feed. No one else accesses this other than myself. I have security credentials to access the network. Everything is logged and monitored. So by us maintaining our own networks and keeping them private, it's one way of not allowing intruders in to hack our devices.
And all your public-facing stuff through APIs.
Correct, yes.
All right, good discussion.
Okay, thank you. I think we had one other question in the back here,
Yes,
or
sir.
comment.
Yes, comment on the planning and so forth that has been going on for several years with widening 528.
Mhm.
There's been a lot of discussion on that. Let me ask another question. Brightline, the last I heard of or saw in the paper, they don't plan on putting a station over near the port or in Cocoa for a minimum of 5 years. Is there any way that we could help move them forward so they would put a station there? I mean, the cruise ships are going to start cruising here shortly. I know a lot of people are coming from Orlando International Airport down to the port to get on these boats. And if they had that train, they could come right down there and catch just a bus for the last mile.
What I did want to mention is we have a tour. Katie Mitzner, who is the Brightline's Public Information Officer. And when is that, Abby? Next Monday? The 19th. And we're going to tour the tunnel, and she's going to show us the construction site. And so it'll be another opportunity for me to talk with her one-on-one. Every time we have asked the question, they have been pretty clear that they want to get phase 2 up and running to Orlando, and that they do think the Cocoa Station makes great sense. Some of the executives were here, I think it was a year or two ago, and actually toured the location and met with the Cocoa mayor at the time. And so we've gotten very good feedback about it. There's just been no absolute commitment. We do think it's going to happen, but to get it moved up, I don't know how we can do that. We need to have continue that conversation with them, and I look forward to that. Yes, Abby. Yes.
Oh, good.
So that is correct. In December, we thought it would be a perfect opportunity to, one, get an update from Brightline to the committees and the board, to let them know let us know what their plans are. And also, we need to start thinking about quiet zones, and the Space Coast TPO has volunteered to initiate that process along with our local governments, is to implement quiet zones along the corridor. And before we can move forward with that, the safety improvements at each one of those crossings has to be installed before you can submit an application to the Federal Railroad Administration. So those conversations will be taking place. It's a very good point. We need a station. We don't need it to just come by and go by and we wave at it. We want to have the benefits of having a station here in Brevard County. And so December, we think that would be a really good opportunity for her to come, or maybe someone more higher up, and give everyone an update on where is it at? When is the revenue or ridership study going to be taking place for the Brevard station, which that is the next step, a ridership study.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any further questions or discussion? All right, we had some really good discussion. That was a great presentation too.
Thank you.
Good job. From the TAC, we're looking for a motion to pass resolution 22-04.
I make a motion to approve. Back here.
We have a motion. We have a second by Devin. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any nays?
And from the CAC, can I get a motion, please? Motion from Michelle, second from Arlen. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you again, everyone. And again, just a reminder, please stop by and take a look at everything before you leave. Take a selfie and share that video.
I'll do that.
Thanks again.
All right, thank you. Next, we're going to move into the reports section of today's meeting. And we are looking to have a report from the FDOT, from Anna from the FDOT, I believe. Is she joining us virtually? Oh, okay. Hi, Anna. Okay. Hi. Okay.
I'm a little short, so it makes me feel shorter. But good morning. I'm not Anna Taylor. I'm Rakinya Henson on behalf of FDOT. Anna's my supervisor. Excuse me. But you have some information in your packets that includes a construction report from the Department of Transportation. It includes both upcoming and current projects. There's 2 projects listed there as upcoming. One is a signal upgrade and the other a resurfacing project. Excuse me. There's also 10 projects listed under the current projects. 2 of them include bridge maintenance projects. No, I'm sorry, 3 of them are bridge maintenance projects. There are 2 for widening and resurfacing. There are 2 for intersection improvements. There are 2, excuse me, intelligent technology system signal improvements, and 1 that's a resurfacing and adding a turn lane. The construction report has been updated in the past couple of months. It's kind of restructured to kind of give you a brief synopsis so that it's supposed to be more straightforward, so that if you just need quick information, there's always more detailed information on our website, cflroads.com. And of course, if I can provide any additional information or get back to internally with a construction project manager or anything like that to get you more information, we're always available for that as well. So at this time, I'm available to answer any questions or additional information.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Nice job. Next up, we're going to have a report from Sarah on the Bicycle, Pedestrian, and Trails Advisory Committee.
All right, so the BPAC, or the Bicycle, Pedestrian, Trails Advisory Committee, met on June 28th. They reviewed the fiscal year 22 list of project priorities as well. And we also had 2 presentations, a Vision Zero update from Kimberly Smith and an FDOT crosswalk presentation from Brenda Young with FDOT. It triggered a lot of great safety conversation, and we'll be looking forward to furthering that conversation in future BPAC meetings. Our next meeting is August 30th. And that's all I have to report today.
Okay, thank you, Sarah. I think you're going to stay up here and give us a report on the Transportation Disadvantaged Local Coordinating Board as well.
Correct. Yep. So the TDLCB, or the Transportation Disadvantaged Local Coordinating Board Committee, met on May 24th. They approved the TD rate model, or rather Transportation Disadvantage rate model. Essentially what that is it's the billing rate that's defined annually by the Florida TD Commission. So there's really not a lot of play in whether they approve it or not. It's basically just accepting the money to run the transportation disadvantage services. Also, similar to in the May meeting, how we approved a resolution, they approved the contract to appoint Space Coast Area Transit as the community transportation coordinator for the next 5 years. This is kind of just an administrative item to ensure that those TD or transportation disadvantage funds continue to flow into our county. That was then taken to the TD Commission and they approved it as well. So that's all I have to report on transportation disadvantage today.
Thank you, Sarah. Anybody have any questions for Sarah? Pete, go ahead.
You know, we have not developed the June minutes yet. It was that we didn't have our June meeting before the agenda was already developed, if I'm correct. It was just too quick of a turnaround, so you'll get to see them in September. Yep. Yeah, yes. You can attend if you would like to, Pete. Yep. And I'm sorry. What did you say, Pete? You're very welcome. And Terry is not here today, so obviously it says I'm Terry. He's not here today because he's officially been appointed the transit director. So he had some items that he had to do today. So I'm his substitute for the day.
Good job.
Thank you. Great.
Anyone else for Sarah? No,
Great.
thank you, Sarah.
Thank you.
Okay, next we're going to have an update public engagement report from Abby.
Good morning. I'm Abby Hemingway, and I'm the Public Involvement Officer for the Space Coast TPO. And I'm just going to be recapping some things that we have been doing and some things on the horizon. So before we chat about upcoming public involvement opportunities for July and August, I wanted to briefly touch on some of our wins in the last few months. So here we have two images of collages, and in May, on the left-hand side here, we celebrated National Bike Month. Education and Safety Coordinator Kim Smith from our office partnered with Alert Today Florida to host a community training for law enforcement officers. Those officers learned how to properly fit bicycle helmets, safety tips, defensive walking and bicycling skills, and most importantly, they learned how to conduct a bicycle rodeo to hold for children in their community. We want to thank those officers from Palm Bay Police Department, West Melbourne Police Department, Melbourne Police Department, and the Brevard County Sheriff's Office for their participation. We really value our relationships with our local law enforcement agencies. They are really our traffic safety advocates in those communities. So that was a really great event. And in June, we recognized the City of Cocoa as a Vision Zero hero. It's a new program that we are developing as we continue in our Vision Zero action plan. We recognize the City of Cocoa for their efforts in moving forward towards Vision Zero. Speakers included our Executive Director, Georgiana Gillette, National Coalition for Safer Roads President, Melissa Wandel. She's also an ambassador for Alert Today Florida, and Kim Smith, the TPO Vision Zero Project Manager. Taking this time to commend our cities and our municipalities and our partners in positive strides in the right direction is essential to the mission of Vision Zero, and shifting our culture around traffic safety really takes a village. We also want to thank City of Cocoa Council members Lorraine Koss, District 4, and Lavander Hearn, District 2, for taking the time to speak about the city's efforts and paying tribute to a life that was lost a year ago to the day of this event due to a preventable crash. We also want to thank TAC member Abigail Morgan for her support and coordination. This event actually got broadcast coverage of News 13 was out here, and they were nice enough to run a story for us. So really great events. And then last month, we also held our annual open house, which is an opportunity every year to discuss transportation projects in Brevard County. And we highlight the draft tip every year. This is also a chance where the public can share their thoughts about the transportation projects to be implemented over the next 5 years. During the webinar, we chatted about different topics, which included intelligent transportation systems, Vision Zero. We talked about how projects are funded, the life cycle of a project. And we also talked about trending and top priority projects. The goal of the open house is always to engage more people. We've come a long way. from where we used to be. And we also use this forum to gauge how citizens feel about trending issues in transportation. So as you can see from some of this feedback here on the screen, we got some great input. And this information really helps guide our strategic public outreach plan and our education campaigns. So just as a recap, we had 52 virtual attendees this year. We decided to only host a virtual open house. We felt like last year it was really beneficial. And in years past, we haven't had so many people show up to a evening event. So I think this worked really well this year. And you can see some key takeaways here on the screen. We had great promotion of this event. We reached a lot of people. So again, we keep building our public engagement with this specific event every year. So moving on to current topics in public engagement, some of our social media spotlights over the next few months include to keep promoting NHTSA's Drive Sober, Get Pulled Over campaign, which they launched on July 4th, Stop on Red Week, which we've already talked about. And at the end of August, we'll be launching our new website, which we are really, really, really excited about. And I'll be presenting that website to you, our new platform soon here at an upcoming meeting. So we know that August is always back to school month. We always use this opportunity as a opportunity to partner with our local law enforcement agencies, our municipalities, and public information officers to really spread the word that traffic safety is another school supply to add to the list, to talk to your children about. It really starts at home. We'll be developing a social media campaign to highlight different topics that are really Vision Zero inspired. As Jordana mentioned earlier, on August 3rd, we'll be hosting our Stop on Red Week event, and we're very excited for that. It's an on-the-street safety pop-up event. We'll be waving signs at the intersection of a high crash corridor. If you're interested in volunteering, please email Kim Smith. And lastly, once again, on August 26th, our next Transportation Thursday webinar, Stephen Bostel will be talking more about what you learned today, intelligent transportation systems and traffic operations. He'll be chatting about how ITS is redefining the ways that we're moving on our roadway. So make sure you register to join us. That's all I have.
Okay, great stuff, Abby. Any questions for Abby? Okay, thank you. Our last item on reports is the local government report. Are there any representatives from any of our local governments that would like to report on anything? Can somebody pass Devin the microphone? Thank you.
I have one project that Brevard County is getting ready to start. It's a sidewalk project on John Rhodes Boulevard from O'Galley Boulevard to the curve at Aurora. So the pre-construction meeting is next Monday, July 12th. That's all I have.
Great, thank you. Anyone else? I actually have a couple of things. I work at the airport in Melbourne, and I say it like that because we have a new name. Our new name is Melbourne Orlando International Airport. I'm not sure if everybody saw that. So that's official. I'm actually pretty happy about that myself. The two other things that I wanted to mention is that we recently announced that Allegiant Airways will be serving our airport in our community starting in November, and that's a really big deal. Many of you, I'm sure, fly Allegiant, and they have very good ridership here in Florida and other places. But they're actually going to fly to 3 cities: Nashville, Concord, North Carolina, and Pittsburgh. And of course, they're a ULCC. In my world, that's a really big deal as far as they're a low-cost carrier. So we haven't had a low-cost carrier in Melbourne in this community ever. Well, we had Spirit many years ago, but they were the only one. So really going to give people from our area a better choices about traveling. And from Allegiant's standpoint, coming into a new market, we've been working with them for 7 years actually on this, and that's very typical of them. It takes them a while to move into a new market, and they will not move into a new market unless they think it will succeed. And their model typically, they typically do succeed in markets, and they will add flights in that case. So, we're really very excited about that. The other thing is we have a big construction project underway in our terminal. We're having a renovation, and addition. It's a $61 million project. We have a apron expansion, 3 new gates, a 4-lane security checkpoint, an inline baggage system, a new baggage claim in our international terminal or international federal inspection station, and much of which is because of TUI Airlines, which will start service from the UK in March of 2022. So they're going to be bringing visitors from the UK 7 days a week, about 8 months out of the year. So they're starting out with 16 flights a week. So pretty big deal. It's a 787 aircraft. It's a wide body aircraft. Holds between 300 and 345 people. So these folks will be in our community, taking cruises, going to, the theme parks in Orlando. So you're going to be seeing a lot more UK visitors here next year. With that, does anyone else have any questions? Go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to remind everyone, our next meeting will be September 8th, which is also a Wednesday due to the Labor Day holiday. That's all.
Any other comments? Okay, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.